Everybody's happy you're hanging out. Good morning. My name is Lee Pearson. I am your worship associate this morning. If you are joining us for the first time, you are especially welcome, as ours is a faith that is ever evolving. Please join us after the service for coffee hour next door in the parish hall. I think we're going to have some beautiful slides there from Transylvania. Building over there to your right. We are a thriving congregation, so please, at the end of the service, be sure to peruse your order of service and see what may pique your interest. There's lots of activities and things going on. It is my pleasure this morning to extend a very warm welcome to Reverend Harold Babcock, our Minister Emeritus. Yes. One of our visiting ministers who was already quite comfortable up on high. Reverend Babcock served as the minister here from 1995 until 2016. He has a long and special relationship with our partner church. We are thrilled he is here today to share his experiences and knowledge. It is no small thing that we have gathered here this morning. So let us give ourselves to it. I welcome one and all to our church and to our worship service. It is good to be together.
We'd also like to welcome Sabrina, Harold's wife, who is with us as well. It's good to see you, Sabrina. This morning, we are exploring our 29-year relationship with a Unitarian congregation located in a small farming village in Transylvania called Useke. We have had relationships prior to that with two other congregations there, dating all the way back to the 1920s. This particular relationship of nearly 3 decades is due thanks to Reverend Bert Steeves, who saw the opportunity and the gifts inherent in this. These partnership churches are a unique aspect of our faith and congregation. They come out of the Partner Church Council, which is an organization that connects Unitarian Universalist congregations in the United States with congregations throughout the world, in Transylvania, Hungary, the Czech Republic, India, the Philippines, Hong Kong, Uganda, Burundi, Kenya, and the United Kingdom. These partnerships benefit all of the congregations by way of increasing our understanding of other cultures, recognizing more deeply the importance of our faith's commitment to the liberty of conscience and individual thought in matters of faith, to the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice and compassion in human relations, and responsible stewardship of the earth's living system. These values we hold across the globe, and we are indeed stronger together. This morning we'll be hearing from 2 parishioners who have traveled to Useke, as well as from our Minister Emeritus, who has decades of experience with both our partner church and the Council of Partner Churches. We will learn about the past and imagine the future. Our call to worship this morning is adapted from words written by Francis David. Francis David, born in 1520, was the founder of the Unitarian Church in Transylvania and the leading figure of the non-Trinitarian movements during the Protestant Reformation. The words, "God is one," are hung over many of the Unitarian churches in Transylvania.
In this world, there have always been many opinions about faith and salvation.
You need not think alike to love alike.
There must be knowledge in faith also.
Sanctified reason is the lantern of faith.
Religious reform can never be all at once, but gradually, step by step.
If they offer something better, I will gladly learn.
The most important spiritual function is conscience, the source of all spiritual joy and happiness.
Conscience will not be quieted by anything less than truth and justice.
We must accept God's truth in this lifetime. Salvation must be accomplished here on earth.
God is indivisible.
Egy az Isten.
God is one.
At this time, I would like to invite forward our long-term members, Michael Fosberg and Pat Skibby, both of whom have been to Transylvania twice, and they will light our chalice and candles of peace.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Actually, I must correct you. I've been to Transylvania, Useke, 4 times. So, please join us in saying the words to our chalice lighting, which are printed in your order of service. We gather
This
Hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs, we light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Each week, we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth that we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. There are untold numbers of places on earth that need peace, and these 2 we especially hold close in this service and through the week ahead. After each candle is lit, we will speak the words for peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Peace, salam, shalom. Our first candle this morning is lit for the state of Massachusetts as the hands-free law goes into effect today. We know these laws are necessary, as in 2019, over 2,800 people died in car accidents related to distracted driving. We pray that people can obey this law and seek help if they're unable to do so. Peace, salam, shalom. And our second candle this morning is lit for Transylvania, and in particular, the village of Useke, where our partner church is located. May our Unitarian siblings there and throughout the globe practice their faith in safety and in peace. And there in Transylvania, may the farms give our siblings the substance that they need. Peace, salam, shalom. Please rise in body or in spirit, and let's join together in our opening hymn, number 56. This is a traditional Hungarian hymn, and if it is new to you, we invite you to listen through to the first verse and join in for verses 2 through 4. Please join together in our affirmation of faith. The words are printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Please be seated.
At this time, I would like to invite forward all our youth. Don't be shy.
Come all the way up. It is school vacation, so good morning. So we're a little lighter. We've got plenty of space.
Today, we are going to learn a little bit more about our special relationship with our partner church in Transylvania.
Okay, so let's start. Well, first of all, do you all know who this person is? Right? This is an interesting robe that he has on, isn't it? Yeah? This is Reverend Harold Babcock, and he was the minister here before me for a long time. Right? And it's really good to have him back with us today. And where did you get your robe from? Hold on.
So this robe was a gift to me when I completed my term as the chair of the board of the UU Partner Church Council. And it was made for me in Transylvania and given to me in 2010, just in time for me to wear it at a wedding ceremony. So it's good.
That's great. So we have this relationship with this church. It's called a partner church, right? Like we're partners, so we are together. This is a picture of that church right here, and it's also on the cover of the Order of Service. That's a beautiful church, isn't it? That's the same kind of faith that we have here. Although there, they do it a little bit differently. It's not exactly the same. There are some differences, wouldn't you say? What's one or two of the differences?
They are very biblical still, but they interpret the Bible very liberally, as do we. But the sermon is always preached from a biblical text.
Oh, so there's differences and things that are the same. Transylvania, which is where this is located, is in Romania. And Romania is a country in Europe that is right at where the Central Europe, Eastern Europe, and Southeastern Europe come together. It's a very pretty country, as you can see from those photographs. It has lots of farms and cows, and it has Unitarian churches. So we became partners with this church about almost 30 years ago, pretty soon when you first came, right? That started, yes. And their minister there started the same year that you started here. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
What's his name?
His name is Zsolt Jakab. Zsolt Jakab.
Zsolt Jakab.
Yes. It's confusing in Hungarian because they put their names backwards. So if he were in Transylvania, he would be introduced to you as Jakab Zsolt.
Oh, right. And he's been here before.
He's been here twice and preached here twice. His wife has also been here once, and his brother. Actually, two of his brothers have been here. And also the congregation's president and his wife have been here.
very, very exciting. I think it's really wonderful that we can be such good friends and so close, though we are thousands of miles apart. I think that's really important. Let's just look at one or two other pictures and things here on the altar before you go to Young Church. So here, and these will all be over in Parish Hall during coffee hour, as well as more that are on a video. But there, over there, that's the family. Can you see? Can you tell us who those folks are?
Yes, actually, maybe if I...
Is better? Okay.
I can see this one. So the Zoltenborica are here and here, if you see, the older couple. They're not that old. They're in their mid-40s. And I joke that they have two families. They have Benza and Abel. Benza's now 22. Abel is 20. They're both in university. And then they decided about 12 years after they had the first two that maybe we should have some more. So they had two girls. The older girl is Charolta. Her nickname is Shatsi. And her little sister is Fani. So they have, that's the minister and his family, and they're super nice people. They really are.
So I was very interested to learn all of these things on the altar, except for our chalice and candles of peace, come from Transylvania. And I wondered if you could tell us about that plate there.
Yes. Maybe I should, without lighting my robe on fire. So this little plate is typical of some of the crafts that are made in Transylvania, and they do painted furniture. This just happens to be a plate, but they do furniture that's all painted like this, really beautiful. And this happens to be the coat of arms for the Unitarian Church of Transylvania. And it has in the middle a serpent and a dove, and it's from a biblical text that goes, be wise like the serpent and gentle like the dove. And the words at the top were words that I said during the response this morning, Ej az Isten, it means God is one. So that's what that is.
That's really beautiful. Wow. So you can look more closely after the service at all of these things, and it really just brings it so much closer and alive. And I believe you're going to be learning even more in Young Church as well. So you've been really great listeners, and I hope you enjoy Young Church. And we'll sing you out now with Go Now in Peace.
Good morning. I am Linda Lou Cotney, Pina, Scholes, Burciaga, and this is my journey of faith. I'm listing all my last names since each played a vital role in my journey. The childhood Cotney was a devout Catholic girl who even interviewed to be a nun when in college. Fortunately, that never came to pass. My devoutness began to lessen when Vinnie Pina, an African American, and I went to get married at UMass Amherst in 1967. The priest stated that he would need to obtain special permission since we were an interracial couple, and we needed to promise to never use birth control. Another turning point was when my dear Catholic grandmother, through her tears, said she would never get to heaven because her son became an Episcopal, not a Catholic, priest. Upon moving to Arlington, Massachusetts, I quickly sought out a religion that valued each person's faith journey. Especially since Vinnie and I were involved in civil rights work and, in fact, were the plaintiffs in a successful, precedent-setting federal civil rights case, it was also very important to me that a religion practiced what it preached. I visited First Parish Unitarian Universalist in Arlington, and I signed the book 2 weeks later, 50 years ago this month. It was during my time as Linda Lou Schulz that my journey brought the soul to my UU faith. And it was my trips to Transylvania and my subsequent devotion to Partner Church, both as a member of the Partner Church Council and chair of its communication committee, that provided this soul. At the time, I was married to the UUA president, Bill Schulz. In a group of 4, we traveled to Transylvania in 1986 during the reign of terror of the Romanian dictator Ceausescu. While there, our travels were closely monitored, and we feared for the safety of our fellow Unitarians if we ever said or did something wrong. At that time, the people subsisted mainly on a diet of potatoes, and each night power was shut off. But each of the 20 villages that we visited in 3 days treated us as royalty, using their measly rations to feed us rather than themselves. On the last stop in a remote village, the entire population had been waiting for hours on the roadside for our arrival. We had been blessed beyond imagination. We returned home vowing to never forget our fellow faith travelers, and thus spawned the idea of partnership. Then in 1989, a miracle occurred. After surrounding and protecting Hungarian Reform Minister Laszlo Tökes, hero of the revolution, the Romanian people finally said no. Ceausescu was overthrown. 3 weeks later, I and others embarked on a trip that had been planned before Ceausescu's death. The trip had been planned to convince Ceausescu that the United States and Canada were watching. It included my then husband, the UUA president, a Canadian Parliament member, and a US member of Congress. I will never forget, for all my days, walking the streets of Bucharest with hordes of memorials spontaneously lining the streets, erected for the hundreds, mainly young people, who were killed fighting for the overthrow of Ceausescu and for the truth that liberates. We walked in a quickly erected cemetery among the graves, many of children shot down, their pictures glued to plastic on a stick. At first, the pain was too difficult to surrender to. We walked separately, but then huddled together, tears falling down our faces. In that silence, truth was spoken, and truth liberated each of us. I knew in an instant I would never be the same again. That experience in Transylvania gave soul and spirit to my UU faith. If those villagers could risk their lives standing up for freedom and for our faith, surely I could honor them in my own journey. So now, Linda Lou Burciaga, along with her beloved husband John, a retired UU minister with a 55-year history of working for social justice that we both share, have returned to her spiritual home at FRS. We are thrilled to sit in the pew on Sunday, witnessing a vitality an energy of spirit that I deem exceptional among UU congregations. Reverend Rebecca, our staff, musicians, youth, activists, members, John and I celebrate all you do for this congregation and for Unitarian Universalism. And as a religious humanist / atheist, I so value the acceptance that we all experience at FRS as we each travel on our own religious journeys. May the faith that liberates be yours all the days of your lives.
Thank you so much, Linda Lou. It was beautiful. Half of the proceeds of today's collection will go to support the Massachusetts Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. The coalition brings together over 90 organizations across the state, including First Religious Society, to end the epidemic of gun violence by advocating for improved policies around gun safety and partnering with community organizations working to end violence in their neighborhoods. As an act of worship, the offering will now be received.
This is a time in our service each week where we pause to remember joys and sorrows of those among us. And as happens occasionally, we don't have any specific ones to share this morning. I wanted to share, we now have 2 tables with journals and candles, one in each end of the sanctuary. And anyone is invited to light a candle each Sunday for a joy or a concern upon your heart, to write in the journal, and to indicate if you would like it to be shared. So in lieu of that, I'm going to invite us into a version of a Buddhist practice entitled Tanglin for our community prayer of sorrow and joy. I invite you now to center yourself in a spirit of quiet and meditation. And if you are comfortable, to close your eyes or to gently look upon the floor. Our world is filled with so much pain and sorrow, fear, stress, and loss. It can be tempting to push it all away, to run and hide, fight back. So rarely are we taught the transformative power and healing that comes when we enter into relationship with the pain. At this time, I invite you to imagine in your mind's eye someone you know, maybe in this sanctuary, perhaps a family member or a friend nearby or far away. Perhaps something you saw on the news or read in the newspaper. Someone who is struggling. Someone that may even be yourself, in need of love, safety, courage. Someone who may not realize yet the power that comes from entering into the pain. And as you hold them in your mind's eye, bring to your heart the feeling that they are fighting against. Feel it for them or for yourself. Is it grief, sadness, fear, loss of hope? Be brave and breathe that feeling fully into your body, for them, for you. And as you hold it there, on your exhale, breathe out what it is that they need. Courage, love, belonging, safety. Breathe in again the pain, and breathe out that which they need and you wish for them or yourself. Breathing in the pain and breathing out the love, belonging, acceptance. And as we sit here together, may we know the healing and transformative power of belonging, community. May we be brave enough to transform the pain of this world into justice and love. And our prayer this morning is from George Odell, entitled, "We Need One Another." We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand it again. We need one another when we come to die, and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. Amen.
Today the choir will be singing in Hungarian, and so I will share with you sort of what it is that we are singing about, which is a prayer to God for rain, but then there's a little bit too much rain, and the many animals and shepherds and farmers are a little bit distressed about how much rain actually ended up coming.
I have visited our partner church in Useke several times, though never with a visit organized by our church. When the Iron Curtain was lifting across Eastern Europe, my wife Jessica and I were involved in a number of environmental projects across the region. We organized trainings and professional development opportunities for nature conservationists from the Baltics to the Balkans, including in Romania. But had it not been for our partner church relationship, I might not have come to learn as much as I did about the roots of Unitarianism in Transylvania, nor gotten such an intimate glimpse at village life there. Useke is semi-surrounded by a sweeping bend of the Carpathian Mountains. The Carpathians are similar, they are to the Alps, rather like our Appalachians are to the Rocky Mountains. And I must say there may be similar prejudices about people who live in some parts of both lower ranges. But if you go to Transylvania and you get to know some people and you come to understand just how much difficult history they have endured, you can't help but appreciate them. We took our family on one visit, stayed in the guest house that our church helped to rebuild. Jolt and Borica were great hosts. Our daughter, Elise, they didn't have daughters yet, and so our daughter, Elise, played with their much younger boys, Bense and Abel, without the benefit of a common language. Our son, Ryan, was about 12 years old at the time and delighted in milking their goats. We admired vegetable gardens, we put up hay, and in the evenings, we witnessed the basis of the expression, "until the cows come home," as a herd would come back from grazing, amble into the village, each one splitting off to its respective family. Ryan would later return with an FRS youth group, and on the trip forged a bond with another boy in our congregation, a friendship that had not developed here. And I hope that every youth, and adult for that matter, who visited Transylvania returned with a greater perspective on their life here in America. I know I did. In the rustic farms, I saw reflections of the ramshackle family farm back in Illinois that I might have grown up to work had it not been consumed by a coal mine before I was 10 years old. There were many things about Sekeliland that reminded me of the Midwest and of a simpler time in America. And yet, it is not a museum. Romania joined the European Union 13 years ago. People now have better roads, water, sanitation systems, and the like. Gone are most of the Trabants, little East German cars spewing smoke from two-stroke engines, and life moves on. I regret that we're no longer working in Eastern Europe, and am pained to see that countries like Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, once so full of promise, are slipping back into authoritarianism. Romania is vulnerable. Our work had been supported by the aptly named Trust for Mutual Understanding. We need to grow in our understanding of our sisters and brothers in this and other regions of the world, and a partner-church relationship is a great way to do that. Köszönöm szépen.
Please rise, embody your spirit, and let's join together in hymn number 352. Please be seated. So I must say again how delighted that I am to have Sabrina and Harold with us this morning. And when I thought about today, we had made an agreement and a commitment more than a year ago to have this service. I thought, how in the world can I possibly stand up here and preach or talk about something that I have not yet had the honor of experiencing? And so Harold was generous enough to say yes when I asked if we could perhaps just have a conversation together with you so that those of you who, like me, perhaps are not familiar with this relationship can learn. Those of you who have been there to Transylvania can remember and reflect. And all of us can imagine what the future may be. So I have some questions for you, if that's okay.
I'm ready.
He's ready. So, Harold, can you tell us a little bit of the history of Transylvania and particularly the Transylvanian Unitarians, and why are they so important?
So, as was mentioned earlier, Transylvanian Unitarians trace their origins to the famous Diet of Torda in the year 1568, and the person of Ferenc David, remember backwards, Francis David in English. Thus, unlike American UUs, Transylvanian Unitarians come directly from the radical side of the Protestant Reformation. This makes Transylvanian Unitarianism the oldest liberal religious movement in the world. Now, Francis David was a prototypical Unitarian. He started as a Catholic, became a Lutheran, then became a Calvinist, and ultimately became a Unitarian, because he believed that when one found a better truth, one should be able to change one's convictions. Actually, it was his inability to stop changing that cost him his life, as a law forbidding further religious innovation had been passed after the famous debate in 1568, in which Francis had argued for religious toleration. This was during the time that he was chaplain to John Sigismund, the only Unitarian king in history, but that is a whole other story. Why did the heretical faith of Unitarianism survive in Transylvania when it was being exterminated in other parts of Europe? Well, partly due to the remote location, but also, fascinatingly, because Transylvania was at that time a protectorate of the Muslim Ottoman Empire. And the Ottomans knew that it was a good thing to keep their religious enemies fighting each other rather than themselves.
Wow, fascinating. So how do you describe the people of Useke? Can you help us imagine them?
I will try. I have never experienced hospitality as I have among the people of Useke. They have a saying quite different than in some countries where people say, after 3 days, a visitor is like a dead fish. Transylvanian Unitarians say that after 3 days, a visitor simply becomes part of their family. I've experienced this on every visit I have ever made to Useke, and there have been 23 of them. Zoltan Borika Jakob, our partner church's minister, and his wife are two of the nicest and most generous and fun people I have ever known. Sometimes lunchtime in Useke stretches into the evening, as people would rather visit than go back to work. Pace of life is different. Most of the older people in Useke lived very much as their peasant ancestors lived, working the land. But among the next generation of our friends in Useke, it includes teachers, skilled laborers, and even entrepreneurs. Today, the young people there are similar to young people everywhere, seeking a better life, learning foreign languages like English and German to give themselves more opportunities for education and travel and work, which they often do abroad, and also sharing on Facebook and Instagram. And they are wonderful. And they have a wonderful sense of humor over there. As Brent hinted, things there are changing at an incredible pace. Much that made Transylvania quaint is being replaced by a more cosmopolitan outlook. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing remains to be seen. But one can still find strong traces of the rural and agricultural heritage of that region.
So, how have your 23 trips changed you? And how about the congregation? How would you say that our relationship has changed this congregation?
Well, my relationships with my friends in Uiseke and in Transylvania have been among the most profound in my life. Growing up in a small town in coastal Maine as I did, I never expected to travel to Europe, let alone to such a remote and unusual country as Romania, the region where Transylvania is located today. I think it is essential for us North Americans in particular to have relationships outside of our own country and outside of our own comfort zone. It's important to see how others live. What are their passions? How different are the accidents of history that have affected them? For Unitarian Universalists, it is important to see the different ways that the liberal religious impulse has been worked out in real life and in different kinds of institutions and different cultural and geographical settings. And I hope that, especially for the younger folks from the First Religious Society, those who've been able to go with us over the years, traveling to Uiseke has given them a more international perspective and gotten them to think a little more seriously about what it means to be a member of a liberal religious faith, and also shown them how for many people in the world, this is not an easy thing.
When we were members in the Unitarian Society in Hartford, it was about 18 years ago, there was a boys' choir from Transylvania who came and was making sort of the rounds, and we had several of them staying with us. And I remember, I'm thinking about it when you were talking about how times have changed, because I remember we talked about, shall we take them to Philadelphia? What would they like to learn about? Where can we show them the history of our country? And we were sitting at our dinner table the first night, and we said, how would you like to spend your time? What would you like to do? And they said, we would like to go to the dollar store. So we did. Why do you think, I'm curious about why, with everything that's going on right now in the world and in our country, why do these sorts of relationships matter?
Yes. Well, as I just said before, it's more important than ever for all of us to have a more international perspective, to understand history on more than just a superficial level, to have friends outside of our country who have a different way of seeing things, who have different cares and different concerns than we do. Because our way is not the only way. Unfortunately, as Brent also hinted, this doesn't mean that our friends in Transylvania aren't faced with political challenges quite similar to our own. But in their case, 450 years of tragic history, the reality of being not only a religious minority, but an ethnic one. Our Unitarian friends are Hungarians living mostly in Romania. Their past is haunted by 2 world wars, which took a terrible toll in that region of Europe. When you see the war memorials in these little villages of 500 or 600 people, and you see about 40 names of young men who went away and never returned, you realize the depth of that toll. And of course, then there was 48 years under one of the most oppressive communist regimes in the former Soviet Union. It's a good discipline just to listen, to learn, and not try to impose our ideas of what is right or wrong on folks whose experiences are so different from ours and so much more difficult than our own. I think that humility is one of the most important lessons that partnerships like ours can teach. And God knows we could use a little more humility these days.
Thank you for that. We've discussed a little bit the possibility of having the minister and the congregants from our partner church come and visit here next fall. What do you imagine that might look like?
Well, it would be wonderful to host some of the folks from Uiseke, who've been so instrumental in making us feel at home when we visit there. During past visits here in Newburyport by some of our friends, and there have been 2 visits, a good number of folks in our congregation have gotten to know them by taking part in shared worship, in informal social gatherings, and in touring the near and far neighborhood of Newburyport. And it is amazing how quickly the language difference ends up meaning very little. All we need is the willingness to open our minds and our hearts and to keep a non-judgmental attitude. And here's an easy example of that. When you meet folks from Uiseke, they often have terrible teeth because they didn't have money to go to the dentist. And so, as Americans, we often will see people with terrible teeth and immediately make a judgment about them. Well, there you quickly find out that your judgments are just not correct. So, lots of things like that are important, keeping a non-judgmental attitude. There's a partner church council bumper sticker that puts it quite well. It says the most radical thing we can do is to introduce people to one another.
I imagine sometime in October, which is the time that works best for the minister there because of farming and the realities of that. And I think of what will be going on here in October, and I think it could be an incredible thing.
Yes. We're thinking of a year from now, right?
Oh, right. Sorry, a year from now.
Yeah.
I also want to say that, it's interesting. Folks have said to me, well, we'll see if this is something that's important to you in your ministry and this relationship. And, we don't get that choice. Not that I wouldn't choose it regardless, but not only do I believe we need humility, I believe that we need to remember that we live in covenant. We live in promise to one another in this faith. And we have an almost 30-year relationship with this congregation. They count on us. And to say, well, I'm not sure that's still sort of, in fad, is not in covenant. So it is my honor to carry on that tradition and to live into that truth today. And also in saying that this is not an either or. As we talked about in our opening service this fall, this is all about a both and reality. So how can people learn more about the partner church if they're interested?
Well, one way to learn more about partnership in general is to join the Unitarian Universalist Partner Church Council and receive their online newsletter, which will tell you about lots of partnerships that are happening all around the world. But another obvious way is to speak to some of the over 50 people from our congregation who have traveled to Uiseke over the last almost 20 years, and you will find a list of those folks in the order of service this morning. It's quite remarkable how many folks have gotten there. Over the years, quite a few of our travelers for those of you who've been around for a while, may remember that they have spoken in church services here about their experiences over there. And I also have kept a timeline of the activities of our partnership, and that can be made available. I think it's available out in the vestibule or next door to anybody who's interested, just seeing year by year what we've done. And if you are a history buff, which I know not everyone is, I can also suggest some reading that you might be interested in to learn more about Unitarianism in Eastern Europe, and also about the history of the beautiful and romantic land beyond the forest, which is the meaning of Transylvania. Thank you.
Thank you. Before our closing hymn, there are videos photographs being shown in Parish Hall. There will be the timeline there. There are lots of folks you can talk to. And if anyone who is here today has made the trip there, can you please stand so folks can see who you are? So these are people who you can talk to about their experiences, and hopefully more of us will join you as time goes on.
As we get ready to sing number 1043 in your teal hymnal, I will just say again, we're all going to sing the English lyrics 3 times, and on the 3rd time, the choir will sing a beautiful counter melody with the original Hungarian prayer that is said very frequently in Transylvanian Unitarian churches. So I invite you to rise in body or in spirit.
Beautiful. Please join together in our unison benediction. The words are printed in your order of service. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always. My friends, as we go from this place of love, of peace, of connection, of friendship, and of need, May we go out a little more humble, a little more willing, a little more available to learn, to grow, to connect, and there to be made whole. Go in peace, my friends, and return again in great joy. Amen and blessed be.